From Jerusalem, we're joined by the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, Hilik Bar, and the blogger and human rights activist Elizabeth Tsurkov joins us from Tel Aviv. Thank you both for joining us. Hilik Bar, can I start with you? What is the military operation all about as far as you're concerned?
The military operation is about a very simple thing, to allow the Israelis, like any other country in the world, to see blue sky free of rockets. It's not normal that children, women and generations of people grow up in the south of Israel and now even in the center using to see rockets over their heads. No other country in the world would allow such a reality, and this is exactly what the military operation is all about.
There are plenty that would say that's a fairly one-sided view. Elizabeth Tsurkov, what do you make of what Mr. Bar had to say there?
Well, unfortunately, it's not only the reality in Israel to see rockets flying at us. This is also the reality in Gaza, only except here we are targeted by rockets that carry a few hundreds of kilograms and of explosives and are intercepted by the Iron Dome, thankfully. In Gaza, on the other hand, they don't have shelters, they don't have sirens, they don't have the Iron Dome, and bombs weighing tons are dropped on them.
It does seem, Mr. Bar, that the population that's most tormented about by the artillery rounds landing around them, rockets or shells, is the Palestinians more than the Israeli public.
Yeah, well, I don't think that Israel should apologize for being stronger or for having a technology to defend us from those rockets. And I remind you that if we wouldn't have the Iron Dome, we probably have dozens or hundreds of casualties. But we should ask ourselves which side is the cause for this entire mess in Gaza. And the Gazan people, who are very much not happy for the reality they live in, chose democratically the only government in the world that is also a formal terror organization. And when Ms. Elizabeth see the other side as we are, and we don't want casualties in the other side, she have to ask herself how they allow a terror group manage their life using women and children as human shield and have no care at all about their future, about their life. And instead of making Gaza the next Hong Kong, they are making it a terror of state after Israel withdrawn from it unilaterally. A very, very sad fact.
Is that the view of you and the people that you associate with in terms of Israel's relationship with the Palestinians?
Absolutely. You know, we are at the
No, Elizabeth Tsurkov. I'm asking Elizabeth, is that your view as well?
No, I, of course, don't share this view. First of all, most Gazans today are under the age of 18. They couldn't have voted for Hamas back in the elections in 2005. And even if people voted for Hamas, they voted for them because they are not as corrupt as Fatah were. And even if people chose them for their opposition to Israel and for their terrorist tactics, it doesn't make them legitimate targets. And Israel, I don't think that it targets civilians, but it definitely doesn't care too much when civilians are hurt in bombings that target private homes of Hamas members or military sites. And the result is that the overwhelming majority of casualties in Gaza are civilians, according to the UN.
Hilik Bar, people are asking themselves, quite justifiably, how long can Israel maintain this position of, from time to time, getting involved in violent clashes with Hamas in Gaza or even on the West Bank, letting things die down and then continuing as normal? The status quo is not doing Israel any favours in the long run. Eventually, you will become more and more unpopular on the international stage, surely.
Yeah, well, I hope that the international stage and international community understand that if they were in our shoes, they wouldn't allow this kind of situation. But I don't want the status quo to continue. I remind you that I'm the head of the caucus in the Knesset to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We are speaking with Abu Mazen. We are speaking with Arab countries that want to live in peaceful life with Israel. And I remind you also that it was Israel that managed to have peace with Jordan and Egypt when both sides wanted to have peace. But Hamas is not one of them. Hamas want to kill Israelis. Hamas want to eliminate Israel. And this is why until Hamas will not demilitarize, will put his weapon aside, and will do exactly like the Fatah did many years ago, and this is to acknowledge that we are here to stay and there is room for both of us to live, but not via terror, not via violence. We will have no other choice but to continue in this operation, because even the left side in Israel, which I belong to, the peaceful side, understood that we cannot be no longer in this loop of violence.
Elizabeth Surkov, do you feel that you're in a minority in Israel? I mean, listening to Hilik Bar there, that is a point of view that we're very familiar with in terms of our investigations and inquiries about what goes on in the Middle East. Do you feel that your point of view is in a minority, and perhaps even an unpopular minority in Israel?
I'm definitely part of a minority. I won't deny that, and even an unpopular minority. Whenever we go out to the streets to protest against the war, we are met with violence by far-right wingers. This violence hasn't been condemned by the Labour Party, which labels itself as leftist and pro-peace. We haven't seen any criticism from the Labour Party of the way this operation started, of the fact that Israel is doing its best to derail the unity government between Hamas and Fatah, which completely agreed to all the quartet demands, and the government is not staffed by Hamas members. We are not seeing any criticism of the fact that Israel is continuing to attack Gaza and enlarging the operation and bringing more troops in, and as a result there are more and more casualties on the Palestinian side.
Elizabeth Surkov, I also want to ask you, what are your fears about the long-term future for Israel if this policy continues?
Well, I think every attack, every round of fighting, we have one about every 2 years. Every time we create a new generation of people who hate us, and a new group of people who are recruits for militant organizations or supporters of militant organizations who see no point in living in peace with us. This is what I want, and this is what Hilik wants. But I think what Hilik doesn't understand is that each operation creates more and more hatred, and Palestinians feel that there is no point in negotiating with Israel. Abu Mazen is doing it, and it leads to absolutely no results. The settlement growth continues, so people feel they have no choice but to resort to violence. We need to give them hope by pushing for negotiations, by embracing the unity government, and ending this round of fighting, which is just causing more and more deaths and misery on both sides.
You see, the point is, Hilik Bar, is that a lot of people feel that while the Israeli government says that this war in Gaza has been going on for 3 weeks, as far as people in Gaza are concerned, it's been going on for many years.
Yeah, that's right, and I'm feeling very sorry for them. You know, Israel withdrew unilaterally from Gaza, turning apart people from their homes after generations. They were born there and died there, only in order to give the Gaza government a chance to govern, to make again Gaza the next Hong Kong. We gave them the chance. It wasn't easy for the Israelis, but we made a disengagement. So the Gazan government, the Hamas, took hundreds of millions of dollars and 800 tons of cement and used it not to build hospitals, schools, maybe a tube in Gaza. They used it in order to dig tunnels, in order to kill civilian people and to butcher babies like they did before. And again, in Israel, the majority is pro-peace. This is why we were eligible to make peace with Egypt and Jordan. And the fact is that Israel telling the Palestinian and the Arab world one simple thing: if you want to live here next to us, welcome. We will help you make a two-state solution. If you want to live here instead of us, you should know it will never happen, because we have the right to live as free democracy, the only one in the Middle East, and we will fight and struggle for our right to do so.
Okay, Elizabeth Surkov, final thought. Benjamin Netanyahu has made much of these tunnels. And Hilik Bar has also said that these tunnels have been built in order for Israelis to be killed. Do you have this fear? Do you share this fear of the tunnels in Gaza? Do you feel they're a threat to your safety?
I definitely think that the tunnels are a threat to our safety. I just think that the current operation will manage to destroy tunnels, then we'll exit Gaza, and then new tunnels will be built. The only way to prevent another round of fighting, and then another round of fighting, and then another one, is by finally negotiating seriously with Abu Mazen, who does want peace and says he wants to live next to us, not instead of us. And instead of negotiating seriously with him, we are putting up all sorts of conditions and continuing the expansion of settlements. And that's why more and more people feel that Hamas and its way of violence is the only way to force Israel into a settlement.